On the coldest night of the year, when the streets of New York were covered with a thin layer of snow and the city's brightest towers looked like castles floating above the clouds, a man in a torn brown coat stood alone beneath a flickering street lamp. His beard was untrimmed, his shoes were cracked, and his hands were trembling from the freezing wind. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another homeless man trying to survive another night. But beneath the dirty coat was a tailored shirt worth more than most people's monthly salaries, and inside his pocket was a phone that contained the power to control a billion-dollar empire. His name was Adrian Blackwood, one of the youngest billionaires in America and the owner of Blackwood Industries, a company with hotels, technology firms, luxury apartments, and financial investments across the world. Yet that night, Adrian wanted no security guards, no expensive car, no assistance, and no recognition. For months, he had watched people change their behavior whenever they discovered his identity. Strangers suddenly became friendly, business partners became desperate to please him, and even some employees treated him like royalty. Adrian had begun to wonder whether anyone in his life would ever help him simply because he was human. So he created a plan. He would disappear for 7 days and live as a homeless man named Daniel. He would visit places connected to his company, observe his employees, and discover what people were really like when they believed no powerful person was watching. On the third night of his experiment, Adrian found himself standing outside one of his own luxury office buildings. He had chosen the building because it remained open late and had a small covered entrance where he could escape the snow. He sat against the wall, lowered his head, and waited. Several employees walked past him without looking. One young executive stepped around him as though Adrian were an obstacle on the sidewalk. A security guard eventually came outside and told him to leave. Adrian expected that. What he did not expect was what happened 20 minutes later. A middle-aged janitor named Marcus Reed came through the entrance carrying a mop bucket. Marcus had worked in the building for nearly 12 years. He wore a faded blue uniform, old black shoes, and a simple silver watch. His back was slightly bent from years of physical work, but his eyes were warm and alert. When he saw Adrian sitting in the freezing cold, he stopped. "Hey, brother," Marcus said gently. "Are you okay?" Adrian looked up and pretended to be confused. "I'm fine." Marcus frowned. "You're sitting outside in the snow. That doesn't look fine to me." Adrian shrugged. "I don't have anywhere to go." Marcus glanced toward the street, then toward the building. "Have you eaten?" Adrian shook his head. Marcus opened his lunch bag and pulled out half of a turkey sandwich wrapped in foil. "It's not much, but you can have it." Adrian stared at the sandwich. It was probably worth less than $5, yet the gesture made him uncomfortable in a way no expensive gift ever had. "You should eat it," Adrian said. Marcus smiled. "I already had half earlier. I can survive." Adrian accepted it. "Thank you." Marcus then disappeared inside and returned a few minutes later carrying a cup of hot coffee. "Drink this slowly. It's hot." Adrian took the cup with both hands. "Why are you helping me?" Marcus sat beside him. "Because someone should." Adrian looked at him carefully. "What if I'm dangerous?" Marcus laughed softly. "Then I guess I'll find out." "What if I'm lying?" Adrian asked. Marcus shrugged. "Everybody lies sometimes. That doesn't mean everybody deserves to freeze." Adrian had no answer. He had spent years surrounded by lawyers, investors, executives, and people who calculated the value of every interaction. Marcus had given him food without asking his name. That night, Adrian stayed under the entrance until Marcus finished his shift. Before leaving, Marcus handed him an old wool blanket from the supply room. "Keep this," he said. "Bring it back tomorrow if you're still around." Adrian nodded. I will. Marcus walked away, unaware that the homeless man he had just helped owned the entire building. The next morning, Adrian continued his experiment. He visited another company property and spent several hours near the employee entrance. He saw managers ignore workers, supervisors yelling at cleaners, and executives complaining about small inconveniences while employees struggled with low wages. But then he returned to the first building and found Marcus cleaning the lobby. Marcus immediately recognized him. "You came back." Adrian smiled. "You said I could." Marcus nodded. "Good. You look better." Adrian sat near the corner. "Marcus, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you like working here?" Marcus paused. "Sometimes. Only sometimes. The people are good, mostly. The work is hard, but honest work is nothing to be ashamed of." Adrian watched him carefully. "What about the company owner?" Marcus laughed. "I've never met him." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "What do you think of him?" Marcus leaned on his mop. "Honestly? I don't know. Rich people are just people with more money. Some are good, some are terrible." "And if you met him?" Adrian asked. Marcus smiled. "I'd probably thank him for giving me a job." Adrian felt something tighten in his chest. "Why?" "Because this job paid for my daughter's nursing school." Adrian looked surprised. "Your daughter?" "Her name is Lily. She's 22. She's studying nursing." Marcus proudly showed him a photograph on his phone. "She wants to work in emergency medicine." Adrian smiled. "You must be proud. More than you can imagine." For the next 4 days, Adrian continued living as Daniel. He slept in shelters, ate inexpensive meals, and spent his days observing his employees. But every evening, he returned to the building where Marcus worked. They talked about life, family, dreams, and regrets. Adrian eventually told Marcus that his name was Daniel and that he had lost his job after a business failure. It was not completely true, but it was close enough to his invented story. Marcus never judged him. One evening, Marcus found Adrian staring at the tall glass walls of the building. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Adrian said, "I'm wondering what people would say if they knew who I really was." Marcus smiled. "Would it change who you are?" Adrian looked at him. "Maybe." Marcus shook his head. "Then don't let money decide who you become." Those words stayed with Adrian. On the 6th day, disaster struck. Marcus was cleaning the executive conference room when he suddenly collapsed. Adrian, who was nearby, rushed to him. Marcus had severe chest pain and difficulty breathing. Adrian immediately called emergency services and stayed beside him until the ambulance arrived. At the hospital, Adrian learned that Marcus needed urgent treatment. Doctors assured him Marcus would likely recover, but the medical bills would be expensive. Adrian quietly contacted his financial team and instructed them to cover every expense without revealing his identity. But there was another problem. Marcus's daughter, Lily, had been told only that her father had been taken to the hospital. When she arrived, she found Adrian sitting outside the room. "Who are you?" she asked. "A friend of your father's." Lily looked confused. "My father doesn't have many friends." Adrian smiled. "He has at least one." Lily looked through the window at Marcus. "Will he be okay?" "Yes," Adrian said confidently. "He's getting the best care." Lily wiped her tears. "I don't know how we'll pay for this." Adrian looked at her. "Don't worry about that." She frowned. "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, a group of executives entered the hallway. They were Adrian's senior managers. They had been searching for him for days because his disappearance had caused panic inside the company. One of them saw Adrian in the hallway dressed as Daniel and laughed. "You again. Security should remove him." Another executive recognized him only as the homeless man who had been hanging around the building. How did he even get into the hospital? Adrian stood silently. Then the elevator doors opened. Adrian's personal security chief, James, stepped out followed by several executives. Everyone immediately straightened. James walked directly toward Adrian. "Mr. Blackwood, we finally found you." The hallway became completely silent. Lily stared at Adrian. Marcus, still weak in his hospital bed, opened his eyes. "Mr. Blackwood," he whispered. Adrian slowly removed his old cap. "Yes." Lily's mouth fell open. The executives looked horrified. The homeless man they had ignored was their billionaire owner. Adrian turned toward them. "You all spent 6 days searching for me." One executive nervously said, "Sir, we were worried." Adrian's expression hardened. "Were you worried about me, or about the company?" Nobody answered. Adrian then looked at Marcus. "There is one person who never asked who I was." Marcus smiled weakly. "I guess I should have asked." Adrian laughed softly. "No. That's why you're different." He turned toward the executives. "I disguised myself because I wanted to know how people behave when they believe nobody important is watching. What I saw was embarrassing." He explained how employees had ignored homeless people, how managers mistreated cleaners, and how workers were afraid to speak honestly. "A company is not successful because its owner has $1 billion, Adrian said. It is successful because ordinary people choose to give their best every day." Then he looked at Marcus. "This man gave me food when he thought I had nothing. He gave me coffee when he needed every dollar for his family. He gave me a blanket without asking for anything in return. He treated me like a human being." Marcus shook his head. "I only did what anyone should do." Adrian smiled. "Exactly. And that is why you will never have to worry about money again." Marcus stared at him. "What?" Adrian revealed that he had created a special employee assistance foundation and named it after Marcus. It would provide emergency medical assistance, education scholarships, and housing support for employees and their families. Marcus's hospital expenses would be completely covered, and Lily would receive a full scholarship for her remaining education. Marcus began to cry. "I can't accept this." Adrian held his hand. "You already gave me something more valuable. You reminded me why I built my company in the first place." Marcus squeezed his hand. "Then promise me something. Anything. Don't become the kind of rich man who forgets people like us." Adrian nodded. "I promise." 3 months later, Adrian stood on a stage inside Blackwood Industries headquarters. The entire company had gathered. Marcus, now fully recovered, sat in the front row beside Lily. Adrian announced major changes: higher wages for lower-paid employees, improved working conditions, healthcare assistance, scholarships for employees' children, and a new policy requiring executives to spend time working alongside frontline staff every quarter. The executives who had treated workers badly were removed from their positions. Marcus was offered a management role overseeing employee welfare, but he initially refused. "I'm a janitor," he said. Adrian smiled. "You were a janitor. Now you're the person I trust most to remind this company what respect looks like." Marcus accepted. A year later, the company had become more profitable than ever, but Adrian measured his success differently. He no longer cared about being the richest man in the room. He cared about being the kindest. One evening, Adrian returned to the same entrance where Marcus had found him on that freezing night. The snow was falling again. He stood beneath the same street lamp, remembering the man he had pretended to be. Marcus walked outside and laughed when he saw him. "You know, Mr. Blackwood, you look terrible in that coat." Adrian laughed. "I wanted to see if you'd recognize me." Marcus shook his head. "I'd recognize you anywhere." Adrian looked toward the city skyline. "Do you ever regret helping that homeless man?" Marcus smiled. "No. Because he turned out to be a decent friend." Adrian looked at him. "I was the one who thought I was testing people. But really, you were the one who tested me." Marcus nodded. "And did you pass?" Adrian smiled. "I'm still trying." The two men stood together beneath the falling snow, one a billionaire and the other a former janitor, but for that moment neither title mattered. Marcus had taught Adrian the lesson money could never buy: a person's true worth is not measured by what they own, but by what they are willing to give when they believe they have nothing to gain, and from that night forward, Adrian never again looked at a homeless person as someone beneath him. He looked at them as someone who might simply need the same thing Marcus had given him on the coldest night of his life: a little kindness, a warm meal, and one person willing to say, "You don't have to face this alone."